Pair work and group work are often seen as the gold standard in language teaching, but are they always the best choice? In this episode, I'm going to unpack what pair work and group work actually are and how they are different and why we use them. And importantly, when not to use them. So let's start with the basics. Pair work is when two students work together, right, on a task or an activity. It's usually quite focused and fast-paced and highly interactive. Because there are only two students involved, both learners are almost always involved. There is nowhere really to hide for any of them. Now, group work, on the other hand, involves three or more students. It's often used for discussions, problem-solving tasks, or collaborative projects. Now, you tend to get more ideas in a group work and perspectives, but participation can sometimes be uneven because there are, more people. So in simple terms, pair work is more focused and intensive, while group work is broader and more dynamic. Now, one way to think about the difference is this. Pair work tends to maximize participation. Students get more speaking time, they get more turns and more immediate interaction. Whereas in a group work, it kind of maximizes perspectives. Students are exposed to different ideas and opinions, because there's more of them, and ways of thinking. But not everyone speaks equally, and managing the interaction becomes more complex, right? But why should we use them? We use group work and pair work, particularly pair work, for building confidence. It gives the students more speaking time, it reduces anxiety, and allows them to practice language in, lower pressure setting. Group work, on the other hand, supports deeper learning in a way that encourages students to negotiate meaning, explain their ideas, and engage in more complex communication. So it also reflects real-world communication, right? Where we often work collaboratively rather than individually. So you can say that pair work is great for practice, while group work is great for developing ideas. So that's why we often tend to use pair work when we have controlled practice, right? And then for freer practice, we tend to use group work. Now, one thing that is important when we decide whether to use group work or pair work, and it doesn't matter either of them, is to really think about preparing students, for them. So this is something that teachers tend to overlook, and this is where things can often go wrong. So pair work and group work, they don't fail because of the method, they fall because of a lack of preparation. Before the task, students need clear instructions. They need to understand why they are doing. It really helps to model the task, to show them what a good response or interaction looks like. You may also need to pre-teach key vocabulary, especially if the task is cognitively demanding. Now, during the activity, your role doesn't disappear. That's very important. You need to monitor, you need to support and keep things on track. And after the task, feedback is essential, not just on grammar, but on how effectively students communicated their ideas, how effectively they worked together. So feedback on the actual working together, the actual collaboration is also very important, particularly if your students are not familiar with pair work and group work. They really need that initial scaffolding. So a key takeaway here is that don't just tell students to talk, show them how to talk and work together. Now, the next question we really need to consider is when to use and when not to use pair work and group work. So when should you use pair work and group work? Pair work is ideal when you want to maximize participation, especially within less confident learners or when practicing specific language is needed. Now, group work works best when tasks require discussion, problem solving, or multiple perspectives. But, and this is an important one, they are not always the best choice. You should avoid using them when instructions are unclear, when students don't have the language they need, or when the task itself doesn't have a clear purpose. They're also not suitable when you need individual assessment or when time is very limited. And sometimes individual thinking or, whole class discussions are simply more effective. So it's very important to really think why you're using pair work and group work, and do not use them for the sake of using them. So we need to bust a myth. There is a common belief that good teaching always involves pair work and group work, but that is not true. They are not goals in themselves, they are tools. And that's very important to remember. And like any tool, they only work when used at the right time for the right purpose. So the key takeaway is that good teaching isn't about always using pair work and group work, but it's about choosing the right type of interaction for the right purpose. And when you do that, and you do that well, that's when real communication and real learning happens. Thanks for watching.